Year 21189. Earth drifted silently at the edge of civilized space like a forgotten planet abandoned by the rest of the galaxy. Massive alien trade routes crossed nearby star systems every day, yet almost no ships ever stopped at Earth unless they had official business with the Galactic Council. To the advanced civilizations spread across the stars, humanity was an embarrassment, a failed species. Weak bodies, weak technology, weak minds. Across thousands of worlds, humans had become a joke told in alien classrooms and military academies. Every year, the Galactic Council released its official planetary rankings, and every year Earth remained at the very bottom. Children on distant worlds laughed while studying human history. Alien teachers showed images of human wars, poverty, pollution, and division as warnings of what happened when intelligence evolved without discipline. Some alien races even refused to allow humans inside their cities without supervision. They believed humans were too emotional, too unpredictable, and too primitive to trust. The worst humiliation came during the council assemblies on Etheron Prime. Human ambassadors sat in silence while representatives from stronger worlds openly mocked Earth in front of the entire galaxy. Some called humans animals, pretending to be civilized. Others argued that Earth should lose its status as an independent planet entirely. Every insult spread across interstellar networks within minutes, and billions of humans watched helplessly from home. After decades of humiliation, something inside humanity had changed. Hope faded, pride disappeared. Entire generations grew up believing humans truly deserved to be the lowest species in existence. But not everyone accepted that fate. Commander Elias Vey stood alone inside a transport shuttle descending through violent Arctic winds toward Outpost K-12 in northern Greenland. Snowstorms crashed against the windows while distant lightning illuminated the endless frozen landscape below. The outpost looked tiny beneath the storm, just a cluster of metal structures surrounded by mountains of ice and darkness. Elias stared silently through the glass. 38 years old, former Earth defense pilot, survivor of the Titan border wars, one of the few military commanders respected even by certain alien officers. But none of that mattered anymore. Human victories were small and temporary. The galaxy still saw Earth as weak. The shuttle landed hard against the ice platform. The moment the doors opened, freezing winds slammed into Elias like a wall. Scientists and soldiers rushed through the storm carrying equipment toward a massive excavation site beyond the outpost. But something had crashed here 3 days earlier. At first, orbital scans identified it as a meteor. Then deeper analysis revealed impossible readings beneath the ice, exotic metals, artificial structures, energy signatures older than recorded galactic history. That was when the Council became interested. Now alien warships hovered silently above Earth, watching everything. Elias walked through the snow toward the excavation zone, where enormous floodlights illuminated a gigantic hole carved deep into the glacier. Hundreds of workers stood frozen in silence around its edge. Even hardened soldiers looked nervous, because beneath the ice rested something that should not exist. A black object nearly the size of a battleship lay buried inside the glacier, like a sleeping creature trapped beneath frozen water. Its surface was perfectly smooth without damaged scratches or visible engines. Strange glowing symbols pulsed faintly across the hull, moving like living light. Dr. Mira Solon waited near the edge of the excavation site, studying holographic readings floating before her eyes. She barely noticed Elias approaching. Mira was one of the brightest xenoarchaeologists on Earth, calm, intelligent, and completely obsessed with ancient civilizations. Her dark hair moved wildly in the storm while glowing data reflected across her focused face. When she finally looked at Elias, her expression disturbed him immediately. She looked afraid. That alone was unusual. "What have you found?" Elias asked. Mira hesitated before answering. "We scanned every known galactic archive," she said. "No civilization matches this technology, not even the oldest races." Elias looked toward the buried ship. "How old is it?" Mira swallowed slowly. "At least 1 million years." The wind suddenly felt colder. That was impossible. No known civilization survived from that era. Most historians believed intelligent life had barely spread across the galaxy at that point in history. Yet this thing existed before almost every recorded empire. Elias stepped closer to the edge, staring at the glowing black structure beneath the ice. "Any life signs?" "None," Mira said quietly. But that is not the strange part. She activated another hologram showing streams of genetic data. The ship is reacting to humans. Elias frowned. What does that mean? Mira zoomed the display closer. Every time a human approaches within 50 meters, the energy inside the structure changes. It ignores alien species completely. We tested it with council observers this morning, no reaction. But when humans get close, the symbols activate. Elias looked back at the ship again, like it recognizes us. Mira said nothing for several seconds. Then she spoke softly. I think it does. Before Elias could respond, alarms suddenly echoed across the outpost. Workers turned in confusion as warning lights flashed red through the storm. An operator shouted from the control tower. Energy spike detected beneath the ice. The ground trembled violently. Snow collapsed from nearby cliffs while cracks spread across the glacier around the excavation site. Soldiers grabbed rifles instinctively, though none of them understood what threat they faced. Then the black ship moved. Not physically, but the glowing symbols across its surface suddenly ignited brighter than before. Pulses of light traveled through the ice like veins awakening beneath frozen skin. The entire glacier began humming. Not a sound heard through ears, but something deeper. A vibration felt inside the chest, inside the bones. Several workers collapsed instantly, screaming in pain. Alien communication systems overhead failed without warning. Orbiting council ships disappeared temporarily from radar. Drones fell from the sky, one after another, crashing into the snow. Mira stared at her scanner in disbelief. It's powering up, she whispered. How Elias demanded. There is no visible reactor. Then suddenly the ice exploded. A massive shockwave blasted outward, throwing soldiers across the snow. Elias slammed hard against the ground while freezing wind roared through the excavation site. The glacier cracked open completely. For the first time, the ancient ship became fully visible beneath the storming Arctic sky, and something terrifying happened. The glowing symbols changed shape into human language. Everyone froze, because across the side of the ancient black vessel, glowing words slowly appeared through the darkness. Welcome back. Silence consumed the outpost. No one moved. No one breathed. Elias felt cold terror crawl through his body. An alien ship older than civilization itself had just spoken directly to humanity. Then the center of the vessel began opening. A circular doorway unfolded silently from the black metal, revealing darkness deeper than night itself. Strange blue light pulsed from somewhere inside the structure, casting shadows across the snow. Mira stepped backward, shaking. Elias could hear fear in her breathing now. This was not discovery anymore. This was contact. And deep inside the ancient ship, something had been waiting a very long time for humans to return. The Arctic storm howled across the frozen wasteland as the ancient doorway slowly opened inside the black ship. Blue light spilled across the ice like liquid energy, while every soldier around the excavation site stood frozen in fear. No one had trained for this moment. No one in human history had ever stood before technology older than civilization itself. Commander Elias Vey stared into the darkness beyond the doorway and felt something strange deep inside his chest. It was not fear. Not exactly. It felt more like recognition, like a distant memory buried somewhere inside him had suddenly awakened. Dr. Mira Solon stepped closer beside him while gripping her scanner tightly. The energy levels inside are increasing, she whispered. I have never seen readings like this before. Then her scanner suddenly exploded in her hand. Sparks burst into the air and the device died instantly. Around the excavation site, every electronic system began shutting down one after another. Floodlights flickered violently. Communication towers failed. Military drones crashed from the sky into the snow. Even the massive generators powering the outpost started losing energy. Then the humming sound returned. Deeper now, stronger. The vibration spread through the glacier and into every human standing near the ship. Soldiers dropped weapons and covered their ears, but the sound was not entering through hearing. It moved directly through the body itself. One young technician collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. I can hear voices, he whispered. More workers began panicking. Some screamed that shadows were moving inside the ship. Others claimed they saw human figures standing in the darkness, watching them silently. Elias grabbed a rifle from a nearby soldier and slowly walked toward the entrance. Mira followed immediately. You cannot go in there alone, she said. Neither of them noticed the alien warships appearing above the clouds. Far beyond Earth, deep inside the Galactic Council chambers on Etheron Prime, emergency alarms echoed through the enormous silver halls. Representatives from hundreds of alien civilizations watched holographic screens in growing panic as impossible signals spread outward from Earth across interstellar space. Ancient warning systems buried for thousands of years suddenly activated automatically. Restricted archives unlocked themselves, and one classified phrase appeared across every secure military network in the galaxy. Void signal detected. Inside the chamber, silence fell instantly. Then High Chancellor Veilcourt slowly rose from his throne. The ancient alien leader looked pale beneath the glowing chamber lights. His species had ruled part of the galaxy long before humans even discovered electricity. Nothing frightened him anymore, until now. A younger council officer turned toward him nervously. Chancellor, we have confirmed the signal originated from Earth. Veilcourt did not respond immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the ancient symbols flashing across the holographic display. Impossible, he whispered. Another council member spoke carefully. The Void Archives described this signal as extinct. Veilcourt looked toward the council with visible fear in his expression. That signal does not belong to a civilization, he said quietly. It belongs to a weapon. The chamber erupted into confused voices. What weapon? Another council member demanded. Veilcourt answered with only one word: humanity. Back on Earth, Elias crossed through the ancient doorway into the ship. The moment he stepped inside, the temperature changed completely. The freezing Arctic cold vanished instantly, replaced by warm, still air carrying a strange metallic scent. Blue light moved silently through the walls like living veins beneath black glass. The corridors curved unnaturally as if the structure had been grown instead of built. Every surface shifted slightly whenever touched, almost like the ship itself was alive. Mira walked behind Elias, recording everything manually on a handheld camera since digital systems no longer worked. This architecture makes no sense, she whispered. There are no visible power sources, no wiring, no machinery. The deeper they moved into the ship, the stronger the humming became. Then Elias noticed something disturbing. The walls were changing around them. At first, the black surfaces reflected distorted shadows, but slowly the reflections became clearer. Human faces appeared briefly inside the walls, watching silently before fading away again. Mira stopped walking. Did you see that? Elias nodded slowly. Neither of them spoke again. Ahead of them, the corridor opened into an enormous circular chamber. The ceiling stretched hundreds of feet overhead, disappearing into darkness, while glowing symbols rotated slowly across the floor beneath their feet. At the center of the room floated a perfect black sphere suspended in midair. Smooth, silent, absorbing light itself. Elias felt his heartbeat slowing as he approached it. The closer he moved toward the sphere, the more intense the strange feeling inside him became. Images flickered through his mind too quickly to understand. Giant stars exploding, unknown planets burning, human voices screaming across endless darkness. Then the sphere suddenly reacted. Lines of blue energy spread across its surface. The chamber sealed shut behind them. Mira stepped backward in fear. Elias froze as a voice echoed directly inside his mind. Genetic match confirmed. The voice sounded neither male nor female. It felt ancient beyond understanding. Mira looked around desperately. Did you hear that? Before Elias could answer, the voice returned. Humanity identified. The sphere began rotating slowly while strange symbols filled the air around them. Mira stared at the glowing patterns with horror. Those symbols, she whispered, they are transforming. The alien language slowly reshaped itself into human text. Final airs detected. Elias felt cold energy spread through his body. What airs? He whispered. Suddenly, the chamber exploded with blinding white light. Elias collapsed to his knees as visions slammed into his mind with unbearable force. He saw Earth millions of years ago completely transformed. Massive black cities floated above oceans of light. Human ships larger than moons crossed entire galaxies in seconds. Strange energy moved through human bodies like living fire. But these humans were nothing like modern humanity. They looked powerful, fearless, almost godlike. He saw ancient alien civilizations kneeling before human leaders. Then the visions changed. War, entire star systems burning beneath black storms, human soldiers tearing apart enemy fleets without weapons, planets collapsing into darkness, reality itself twisting and breaking. Elias saw humans controlling impossible power through emotion alone. Rage created destruction, fear bent gravity, grief shattered stars. Then he saw the galaxy unite against humanity, thousands of civilizations forming one final alliance. Not because humans were weak, because humans had become unstoppable. The visions grew worse. Ancient humans began losing control of their own power. Their emotions became too strong. Entire regions of space disappeared into void storms. Time itself fractured around battlefields. Finally, Elias saw the last surviving human leaders make a terrible decision. They erased themselves, their memories, their empire, their history. Humanity willingly reduced itself to weakness to save the universe from extinction. The visions ended violently. Elias screamed as the light vanished. He collapsed against the floor, gasping for breath. Mira rushed toward him, terrified. "What happened?" she shouted. Elias looked at his shaking hands. Thin streams of black energy moved beneath his skin like living shadows. His eyes widened in horror. Outside the ship, warning sirens suddenly erupted across the Arctic outpost. Alien warships filled the skies above Earth. Dozens of massive Council battle cruisers emerged from hyperspace around the planet with weapons fully activated. Global emergency broadcasts spread instantly across every continent. The Galactic Council had declared Earth a Level 1 existential threat. Inside the chamber, the ancient voice spoke one final sentence. Awakening sequence has begun. Then somewhere far beyond the edges of known space, another signal awakened in the darkness. Something ancient heard Earth calling, and it started moving toward humanity. Across every continent, people stood frozen beneath the skies watching enormous alien warships surround the planet like dark metal moons. Thousands of glowing engines burned through the clouds while emergency broadcasts interrupted every network on Earth. The Galactic Council had issued a universal threat declaration. For the first time in modern history, humanity was no longer being mocked. Humanity was being feared. Panic spread instantly. Cities erupted into chaos. Millions rushed through streets trying to escape, even though there was nowhere to run. Religious groups declared the end of the world. Governments activated planetary defense systems that everyone knew would fail against Council technology. Human military forces gathered across oceans, deserts, and orbital stations waiting for orders that never came, because no one understood what was happening. Inside the Arctic outpost, Commander Elias Vey sat alone in a containment chamber surrounded by terrified soldiers. Thick metal restraints locked around his wrists while scanners monitored the strange energy moving beneath his skin. But the restraints were already beginning to bend. Black lines pulsed slowly across Elias' arms like living veins made from darkness itself. Every heartbeat caused the room lights to flicker. Outside the chamber, scientists argued desperately while military officers demanded answers. Dr. Mira Solon stared at the holographic readings floating before her with growing horror. "His body is rewriting itself," she whispered. One officer looked confused. "What does that even mean?" Mira zoomed the scans closer. "His nervous system is generating energy without any known biological source. Human cells should not be capable of this." Another violent pulse shook the entire outpost. Snow exploded from the mountains outside while several nearby vehicles suddenly lifted off the ground before crashing back onto the ice. The soldiers inside the chamber stepped backward nervously. Elias slowly looked up. Something inside him was changing. The visions from the ancient sphere still echoed through his mind. Fragments of forgotten history flashed before his eyes every few seconds. Giant human fleets crossing galaxies, ancient wars tearing apart stars, entire civilizations collapsing before the power humans once controlled. And now that power was returning, not only to him, but to Earth itself. Far above the planet, inside the flagship of the Galactic Council fleet, High Chancellor Vale Kor stood silently before a massive viewing window overlooking Earth. Hundreds of warships surrounded the blue planet in perfect formation, while energy cannons charged slowly across their hulls. A younger alien commander approached carefully. "Chancellor, the human governments are requesting negotiations." Vale Kor remained silent for several moments. Then he spoke quietly. "Do they know what they are becoming?" "No, sir." Velcor closed his eyes. Millions of years ago, the galaxy nearly ended because of humanity. Entire dimensions collapsed during the human expansion wars. The ancient humans called their power the Null Force. They could manipulate matter, gravity, time, and consciousness through emotional energy alone. The commander looked disturbed. Then why erase their memories instead of exterminating them? Velcor finally turned toward him. Because we lost. The room fell silent. The commander stared in shock. Velcor continued slowly. No civilization could defeat humanity directly. Even united together, we were powerless against them. The only reason the universe survived was because the human leaders sacrificed themselves and sealed their own species away. He looked back toward Earth, and now someone has opened the seal. Back inside the Arctic facility, Elias suddenly gripped his head in pain. New memories flooded into him violently. He saw an ancient human standing alone before a dying galaxy. Black energy surrounded the figure, while stars collapsed across the heavens. Entire alien fleets burned in silence around them. Then the memory shifted. The ancient human looked directly at Elias. When humanity awakens again, the choice returns. Then the vision disappeared. Elias gasped for air. The walls around him suddenly cracked. Every electronic device inside the room exploded at once. Soldiers raised weapons instantly. "Stay back," one shouted. But Elias was no longer listening. He could feel emotions around him like invisible waves. Fear, anger, panic. Every emotion inside the room fed the energy growing inside his body, and the more fear he sensed, the stronger the power became. A terrified guard accidentally pulled the trigger of his rifle. The bullet stopped in midair, inches from Elias' face. Silence consumed the chamber. The floating bullet slowly crushed itself into dust without touching him. Several soldiers stumbled backward in terror. Elias stared at his own hands, unable to understand what he had just done. Mira entered the room carefully. "Elias, listen to me," she said calmly. "Your emotions are affecting reality itself. You need to stay calm." But calm was impossible. Outside the base, alien warships continued arriving above Earth. Global communications intercepted fragments of classified council transmissions. Entire cities heard the same terrifying phrase repeated again and again: "Contain the human awakening. Human awakening." The words spread across the planet like wildfire. Then reports started appearing everywhere. A little girl in Seoul survived a collapsing building after invisible force protected her body. A man trapped beneath floodwaters in Brazil suddenly pushed the entire river backward. A dying patient inside a hospital in Nairobi healed within seconds after an emotional breakdown. At first, governments dismissed the reports as panic and misinformation. Then, military satellites confirmed impossible energy anomalies appearing around human populations worldwide. Humanity was changing. The awakening had already begun. Inside the Arctic base, emergency alarms suddenly screamed again, orbital weapons charging, everyone rushed toward the command center. Massive holographic displays revealed the horrifying truth. The Galactic Council fleet was preparing planetary bombardment. Thousands of weapons locked onto Earth simultaneously. Human leaders across the world transmitted desperate pleas for mercy, but the Council ignored every message. Veilcore appeared on every global screen. The ancient alien leader looked directly into the cameras with visible sorrow in his eyes. "People of Earth," he said, "what awakens within your species cannot be allowed to spread again. History must not repeat itself." Millions watched in silence. Your ancestors nearly destroyed existence itself. We gave humanity mercy once. We will not make that mistake again. Then the transmission ended. Global panic exploded instantly. Religious riots consumed major cities. Governments collapsed under chaos. Families gathered together, waiting for death from the skies. Inside the Arctic base, Mira grabbed Elias' shoulders desperately. "If they attack, billions will die." Elias looked toward the storm outside. Something deep inside him had awakened completely now. He could feel the alien fleet above Earth without seeing it. Thousands of minds filled with fear. Fear of humanity. Fear of what humans could become again. And suddenly, Elias understood the terrible truth. The galaxy never hated humans because they were weak. The galaxy hated humans because humans once ruled everything. The ancient powers of the universe had erased human history to hide their own fear. A violent explosion suddenly shook the outpost. One of the alien ships had fired a warning strike into the Arctic Ocean. Towering waves of steam rose into the frozen sky. The invasion had begun. Soldiers rushed into position while evacuation sirens echoed through the base. Mira looked at Elias with tears in her eyes. "What are we supposed to do?" Elias slowly stood. The restraints around his wrists snapped apart like paper. Black energy moved across his skin more intensely now. The air around him distorted slightly as gravity itself struggled to remain stable. For the first time since the awakening began, Elias no longer looked afraid. He looked focused. If the galaxy wants to fear humanity, he said quietly, then maybe it is time they remember why. Outside, the Arctic storm suddenly stopped. Every snowflake froze motionless in the air. Above Earth, thousands of alien soldiers prepared for war, and across the entire planet, billions of humans unknowingly stood on the edge of evolution itself. The skies above Earth turned black with warships. Thousands of massive alien cruisers covered the atmosphere from horizon to horizon, while their glowing weapons pointed directly at the planet below. Cities across Earth fell silent as billions stared upward, knowing humanity stood seconds away from extinction. Emergency broadcasts played endlessly across every screen. Remain calm, seek shelter, await further instructions. But nobody believed shelter could save them now. In New York, millions crowded underground transit stations while children cried in darkness. In Tokyo, entire streets froze in silence beneath the shadow of alien destroyers. In Cairo, families gathered together on rooftops praying as strange lights burned across the clouds above. Humanity had never felt so helpless. And yet, something strange was happening. Across the world, people were changing. Fear moved through humanity like an electric storm, and with every powerful emotion, the hidden force inside humans awakened further. Objects trembled without being touched. Electronic systems failed around emotional crowds. Some people began hearing voices and memories that did not belong to them, ancient memories, forgotten memories. Humanity was remembering what it once was. Inside the Arctic outpost, Commander Elias Vey stepped slowly out into the frozen storm. Black energy surrounded his body like smoke moving underwater, while the air around him distorted unnaturally. Soldiers stared in silence as he walked past them. No one tried to stop him anymore. Mira followed several steps behind, unable to hide the fear in her eyes. Elias, you still do not understand this power, she warned. If you lose control, millions could die. Elias looked toward the sky where giant alien ships hovered above the clouds. Maybe that is why they fear us, he said quietly. Far above Earth, inside the Galactic Council flagship, High Chancellor Vale watched Elias through orbital surveillance feeds. The old alien leader looked exhausted now. Ancient memories haunted his face. The human awakening was happening faster than expected. A military officer approached nervously. Chancellor, our weapons are ready, awaiting final authorization. Valecore remained silent. Another officer stepped forward. Sir, if the humans fully awaken, containment will become impossible. Valecore closed his eyes slowly. He remembered the ancient war. He remembered planets disappearing into darkness, entire civilizations erased in moments by emotional storms humans could not control. He remembered watching reality itself break apart while humanity burned galaxies in grief and rage. He had witnessed the end of worlds, and now it was beginning again. Authorize planetary cleansing, he whispered. The officers immediately transmitted the command. Across the fleet, thousands of weapons charged simultaneously. Red light filled the darkness above Earth. Below the atmosphere, every human being watched the skies with terror. Then the first attack began. Massive beams of energy crashed down from orbit toward major military installations across the planet. Entire oceans lit up beneath the bombardment. Mountains exploded into clouds of fire and ice. But something impossible happened. The attack stopped in midair. Every energy beam froze motionless above Earth like giant rivers of light hanging in the sky. Alien commanders stared in horror at their monitors. The laws of physics themselves had suddenly broken. In the Arctic, Elias stood with one hand raised toward the heavens. Black energy flowed around him violently, while snow lifted from the ground and floated through the air. His eyes glowed completely black now. Veins of darkness spread across his skin, but his face remained calm. The frozen beams slowly twisted together above Earth, forming a massive glowing sphere, visible from every continent on the planet. Then, with a single movement, Elias closed his fist. The entire sphere collapsed into nothing. Silence spread across the battlefield. Humanity watched in disbelief. The alien fleet had just failed. For the first time in history, the Galactic Council looked weak. Inside the flagship, panic erupted among the officers. Impossible, one commander shouted. No biological species should possess this level of power. Veilcor stared silently at Elias' image on the screen. Now you understand, he whispered. But the attack was not over. Hundreds of alien fighters descended into Earth atmosphere, launching invasion forces across major cities. Massive machines crashed into streets, while armored soldiers poured into human population centers. War had reached Earth. Explosions consumed cities, human armies fought desperately, but alien technology overwhelmed them quickly. Entire defensive lines collapsed within minutes. Then humanity awakened completely. In London, a terrified mother raised her hands instinctively as falling debris crashed toward her children. The debris stopped inches away in midair. In Mumbai, crowds trapped beneath collapsing buildings pushed the rubble upward without touching it. In Rio, soldiers surrounded by alien machines unleashed shockwaves that shattered armored vehicles apart. The more emotional humans became, the stronger the power grew. Fear became force. Love became energy. Pain became destruction. The hidden power inside humanity spread like wildfire across the planet, and the galaxy watched in terror. Inside the Arctic outpost, Mira studied global reports flooding across emergency systems. Millions are awakening, she whispered. Elias turned toward her slowly. Not awakening, he said. Remembering. Suddenly, a deep vibration shook the entire planet. Every human felt it instantly. The ancient black sphere inside the alien ship had activated again. A voice echoed directly into Elias' mind. Phase 1 complete. Then new visions flooded his thoughts. He saw something moving through deep space beyond the edge of known galaxies. Something enormous, hidden within darkness, older than time itself. And it was coming toward Earth. Elias staggered slightly. Mira grabbed him. What did you see? Before he could answer, the sky above the Arctic split open with blinding light. A gigantic alien warship descended directly overhead, larger than entire cities. Black weapons rotated slowly beneath its armored hull. The Council had deployed its final weapon. A planet killer appeared through a massive hull of the battlefield. His ancient eyes locked onto Elias. You leave us no choice, he said heavily. Humanity cannot be allowed to rise again. The giant weapon beneath the warship began charging. The energy gathering inside it was powerful enough to erase Earth completely. Mira looked terrified. Elias, if that fires, everything dies. Around the world, billions watched the weapon charging above them. For a moment, humanity stood united in fear, and suddenly Elias understood the truth hidden inside the ancient memories. Humanity's greatest power was never destruction, it was connection. The null force responded to emotion because emotions connected all conscious life together. Ancient humans became monsters only after losing empathy for others. The power itself was never evil, only the hearts controlling it. Elias closed his eyes, then he reached outward with the force inside him. Across Earth, billions of human emotions flooded into his mind at once. Fear, hope, love, grief, loneliness. Instead of resisting them, he embraced them. Black energy exploded outward from his body into the sky. A giant wave of invisible force spread across Earth and beyond, reaching every alien ship in orbit. Then something impossible happened. Every living being connected to the wave suddenly felt each other's emotions. Alien soldiers felt human fear. Humans felt alien sorrow. Commanders felt the pain of dying civilians. For one silent moment, hatred disappeared. The entire battlefield froze. Many soldiers dropped their weapons, crying without understanding why. Even Veilcor lowered his head slowly as ancient guilt returned to him after millions of years. Humanity was never meant to rule through fear. Humanity was meant to unite life itself. The planet killer weapon powered down. One by one, alien ships deactivated their systems. The war ended not through destruction, but through understanding. Weeks later, the Galactic Council officially erased all planetary rankings forever. No species would ever again be labeled superior or inferior. Earth was no longer the weakest world in the galaxy. It became the center of a new era. But deep beneath the Arctic ice, the ancient black sphere activated one final time. A hidden signal escaped into deep space beyond every known star system, towards something waiting silently in the darkness. Something ancient. Something hungry. and somewhere far beyond the galaxy, glowing eyes slowly opened.